quiet, because we're live. So live.
Oh, wait, let me turn off my thing here. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Turning off his thing. We've got Justin Robert Young coming to you live from a motel room. Is it a motel or a hotel? He can't hear me. But when he gets back, we'll ask him this very important question. Did I give you control, Roger? I don't think I did. There you go. I have now given you control. Motel or hotel?
It is a hotel.
Hotel. All right.
Hotel. Yeah, I am in Altamont Springs, Florida, just north of the fair city of Orlando, in what will hopefully be a 4 days packed with exciting, top-notch, edge-of-your-seat professional wrestling.
Whoa! Yeah, I know you're seeing family, but when you say Florida, I immediately jump to the conclusion it's a family trip, but it's not.
No, I saw family today, and hopefully I will see no more of them.
That's what they said.
No, I love spending time with my brother and his wife, and of course the darling, the newly minted Jackson Young, turning 1 year old next weekend.
Oh,
happy birthday to Jackson, who has adorable, just 2 little teeth. That's all he has, and they're perfect. He got
what he wanted for Christmas.
He did. He is a very photogenic baby.
All right, let's get this party on the road, shall we?
Let's do it.
Here we go.
The Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by its listeners, not outside organizations. To find out how you can contribute, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News Show, powered by its audience for Thursday, March 30th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, Justin Robert Young, alongside De Florida today.
Indeed. I come to you from Altamont Springs, just north of Orlando, where I am here for the thrill ride itself, WrestleMania this weekend.
Excellent. We have a thrill ride of stories for you today as well, including what you actually need to know about ISP privacy. It's fine to be outraged. It's fine to be not outraged about the ISP privacy stuff. Justin Robert Young, I'm going to break it down for you, though, of the things that will feed you in deciding between or some gradient between those two states.
Enjoy the buffet of information as you nourish yourself for these discussions.
Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Facebook announced a tool to help users raise funds in 6 categories. It's kind of a GoFundMe thing: education, medical, pet medical, crisis relief, personal emergencies, funerals. The new options are open to U.S. users 18 or older, and Facebook pages now get a donate button they can have go live during their Facebook Live broadcasts to raise money for nonprofits.
Interesting where they want to launch this, because it seems more of a GoFundMe competitor than it does a Kickstarter competitor. I would not be shocked if this is just their first toe in the water where they believe it can catch fire quickly.
Yeah, well, this is maybe the second toe, because they've been doing some donation things, some charity promotion things, so this is extending on that.
Yeah, and bringing it down to the single person level. Meanwhile, Lyft started trials of a shuttle service in San Francisco and Chicago, with drivers going on fixed routes and predetermined pickup and drop-off locations during commute hours.
Huh. Yeah, all right.
I mean, this is something, especially in the Bay Area, where a lot of people have tried. A lot of people have tried to solve this. There are totally non-centralized casual carpool pickups. Chariot is a very famous solution for this that is not necessarily caught on. So it'll be curious to see whether or not Lyft will do it well. And if it does, how quickly Uber does it as well.
Let me know if you're taking that Arlington Heights to the Loop Lyft shuttle, Chicagoans. Now here are some more top stories. Twitter has rolled out a change to Android, iOS, and the web, exempting the usernames of people you are replying to from counting in the 140-character limit of your tweets. In other words, @replies don't count no more. Names of people you're replying to will show in smaller text above the tweet itself. And I actually did a little reply to Justin Robert Young to see if I don't use the reply button, the @ reply does count against the 140 character. It's only if you use the button in one of the apps, including TweetDeck, actually, then it will not count those @ replies.
I know this is your least favorite version of this analysis, of any Twitter analysis, but all right, so you get frustrated because I want to say, shouldn't this have happened a million years ago? And your call and response is yes, but it's happening now.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Right.
Good, though. This is a good change.
Yes.
It is an improvement on their core, their core business.
I'll give you this. Even farther in your court is they talked about doing this a year ago. I think it was in May, so maybe not quite a full year, but not moving fast on that. And also, the other thing I want to point out is I saw this in practice for myself. I know it's rolling out differently to different users, but I saw this in practice before I saw the story about it. Like, it got to me very quickly, and maybe I'm unusual in that respect, but I immediately was like, oh, this is cool. I don't have to think about counting those names anymore. That's great.
Yeah, I definitely saw people making fun to say that Donald Trump can add an extra failed, now that he doesn't have to add
more sads. Yeah.
Yeah, now that he doesn't have to have @NYTINS. Meanwhile, Tesla updated its autopilot software for Tesla cars built since October 2016. Update includes lane departure warnings, auto steer at speeds up to 80 miles an hour, auto lane change in response to turn signal, and summon, which pulls the car out of a parking space without the driver inside. Some of these features, like summon, were available on older models with different sensor hardware.
Yeah, so that's confusing to some people. There were older models of Tesla with different hardware that could do some of these things. Then they put out the new models that had the newer hardware, but they didn't have the firmware to run things like summon yet. So older models could do summon and the newer ones couldn't. And now we're kind of back at parity with a couple of extra features that the older models can't do yet.
And here's something that I think kind of gets lost when we talk about Tesla, and specifically where it's trying to raise the bar, especially as a luxury brand that you're going to spend money on, is that the idea that the car you buy 2 years from now could be better without you having to buy a new car. That they are going to look at it as, the way that we look at buying a MacBook, that eventually it's going to have different operating systems and apps, and it's going to function like a different machine. Whereas normally with automobiles, you buy it and it drops half the value when you gets off the lot, and you're forever pining for all the new bells and whistles on new ones.
I don't think this is going to get rid of depreciation necessarily, but it certainly keeps it at bay a little bit. I can't wait for Tesla fragmentation to become a thing. Like, how many Tesla owners have updated their firmware?
Well, does it push automatically?
It does. In fact, that would be Tesla's response, is like, they don't have to worry about it. It just goes to them. But, there's going to be a few Tesla owners that try to figure out how to block that to keep some old feature. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I hack and reflashed my Tesla.
The Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence will launch in Toronto Thursday. It will research deep learning and applications for AI, funding coming from the Canadian federal government, the Ontario provincial government, along with 30 businesses. Alphabet, aka Google, is among them, as well as RBC. Banking exec Ed Clark will head the institute, and Jeff Hinton, whose work is fairly well known out of Toronto for the AI space, will be the institute's chief scientific advisor. You should know Thomson Reuters and General Motors both recently moved their AI labs to Toronto, and RBC itself is opening its own machine learning lab there. Microsoft's funding a startup over in Montreal. Google's doing some funding with the university in Montreal. So it's becoming an AI hotbed up there, Justin.
Yeah, Silicon Snowdrift, huh?
Right. When Skynet comes, it may come from the big skies of Canada.
It's always exciting to see where these things wind up bubbling up. And normally you can sort of track it based on where the education centers on these are. That, Silicon Valley certainly kind of sprung up around Stanford. And we've seen Pittsburgh become a greater hub for it because of Carnegie Mellon. I'm curious to see why AI has really kind of taken hold in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Hinton is one of those reasons. He's been leading some good projects up in the university, and that attracts some more attention. And now the government is trying to pour a little money to boost that and attract more AI brains to come up to Toronto, which Toronto has a fairly big tech presence already. So it's just got the general buzz on the ground.
Well, and you would hope that, making it a little bit easier to do business would defray some of the higher taxes that people have to pay in the Great White North. App Annie projects consumer spending on apps will grow 33% this year, with growth in mobile commerce and in-app advertising growing right alongside. The bulk of the revenue will come from China, with Japan the most revenue per device. Revenues from all Android app stores will surpass iOS, but when you separate the Android stores out, iOS will remain in front, with Google Play second.
That's the two headlines I saw in this story, depending on where in the world the story was being written. One was Asia Pacific leads in app revenue for developers, mostly because of China. And the other one was Android will pass iOS if you combine all the third-party stores together. So but it is interesting. It's a bellwether, and frankly, it should have. Talk about this. Why didn't it happen earlier? Like, there are so many Android devices out there. You can't expect iOS to lead in revenue forever, especially if you count all the third-party stores. And with China becoming a larger market for this as smartphones penetrate into the populace, it's almost a foregone conclusion that, yes, Asia Pacific is going to lead the way because of China and all those Android phones, which means when you add third-party markets, of course, Android is going to lead in funding.
And Apple, revenue. Traditionally is unafraid of not being the leader, right? They want to make the most money out of it, and that, obviously having a monstrous iOS store will certainly benefit that. But if you look at Android's, your friend and mine, your tenant, Brett the Amtrak Rounsaville, with his Mission Pick app, the biggest question that he always gets is, where's the Android version? Where's the Android version? And it's something that happens to a lot of developers who develop initially for iOS, because you have to worry less about fragmentation and people tend to spend more money on the iOS app store. Now, that worm is turning. Now, if you combine all of the Android app stores, people are starting to eclipse that number. But still, the fragmentation remains, the differences between all the devices and carriers remains, and optimizing your experience for everybody is still there. But the good news for Android users, at least the money is kind of closer to
starting
where it
to come.
should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And fragmentation becomes this loaded word where people start getting arguments of like, well, not all iPhones are up to date on their iOS. It's honestly not what we mean. What Justin is using it for is the way it should be used, which is when you're developing on Android, you have multiple versions of hardware out there that you have to develop for, and multiple app stores if you're developing worldwide, because of the fact that Google Play isn't available in China, and there are other very popular third-party app stores out there as well. So it's not a bad word. It's not a condemnation. It's just saying you have a more complex market. It's the same issue that Windows had versus Mac. You could develop for one set of hardware, or a limited set of hardware with Apple, or you can develop for Windows, where it's like, might not work on every tablet or every laptop out there. And that's just a different marketplace that makes it more complex. I'm wondering if Brett shouldn't contract someone in China to create a version of Mission Pick for their store and then port that over to the Google Play Store.
Well, all I'm saying is everybody should, number one, download Mission Pick. And
yes,
everybody should @reply Amtrekker on Twitter and ask him when the Android version is coming.
That's AMTREKKER. This is my favorite story of the day. I actually had this originally in our little quick hits at the very top, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Microsoft is going to sell its own customized version of the Samsung Galaxy S8 called the Microsoft Edition. Since the S8 already comes with Office, Skype, and OneDrive, that means they're adding Cortana and Outlook and I guess Bing and MSN News and a few other apps like that. I haven't seen a full, complete list yet. But I find this to be fascinating on several levels. A lot of people obviously pointing out the obvious, which is that Windows phones are still a thing. They may be declining, but Microsoft still sells them. So where is this going to go in the Windows Phones section of the Microsoft online store? Probably not. Will they just rename it Phones? I guess. But it's also kind of genius for Microsoft to say, hey, you know what? We have these signature editions of computers that we sell where we say only Microsoft software, no bloatware, no adware.
Yeah.
And they're essentially doing the same thing with Samsung's cooperation on the phone.
This is a reflection of what we've seen with Microsoft since Satya Nadella has come on, right? They've taken great pains to make mobile a priority and understand that the idea that they were going to forever marry their hardware and their software was something that they were going to have to be flexible on. They have a lot of pride in where their mobile apps are compared to where they used to be 4 years ago. So the idea that this is a new branching out, that they are coming to a flagship phone, something that's going to drive a lot of excitement, that's going to sell a lot of units, provided that they don't have another hardware disaster like they did last year. The Samsung Galaxy S8 is going to be a premier device. And the fact that they can step into this market, to me, Tom, is just another sign that Satya Mania is still running wild.
It's running even wilder. I say they have a phone section. I can't find it now. They may have taken it away. Devices, Microsoft Surface. All Windows phones. There it is. Okay, so it is still there after all. And yeah, you can still go and buy a Windows phone should you want to.
Well, and again, I want to harp on this. Their apps are good. They've hired really, really, really good developers, and they've emerged best in class products to make what they do better. There are a lot of people that choose to use these, and considering there's a lot of people that use all these, a lot of these, including Outlook specifically, for their business, that now having an easier integration into a top of the line, a premier phone is going to be attractive to some people.
Yeah, so instead of the Lumia 950 or the Elite X3, you can get a Samsung Galaxy S8 Microsoft edition. I'm fascinated. Because this, like you say, this is Satya Mania running wild. He's like, we don't really even care what the operating system is. As long as you're using Microsoft, we're going to give you that experience.
Hey, what you gonna do, buyer, when Satya Mania runs wild on you?
To get all the tech headlines each day in less than 5 minutes, subscribe to our sister show, dailytechheadlines.com. All right, folks. I know you already know about the ISP privacy rule, and I know you listened to yesterday's show where I made it very clear that, in fact, what the ISPs can do now is no different than what they could do yesterday. All the law did was say the FCC's new rules that were scheduled to go mostly into effect in December won't go into effect now. But one thing we didn't get into yesterday, Justin, was what restrictions are there on the ISPs? It's not like there aren't any rules for telecommunication companies. So the existing restrictions are a little surprising. You may not realize, but under the Telecommunications Act, a carrier is specifically prevented from selling individual information. And I bring this up because there's a lot of very spurious GoFundMe and the like campaigns out there saying, give us a bunch of money and we'll go buy the actual browsing history of individual congressional members and make it public. And the fact is you can't do that. It's actually against the law to buy an individuals without their permission. The telecoms can't do that. You can give aggregated information. ISPs under the Telecommunications Act have explicit authority to give aggregated information. And that's where I think Max Temkin may be coming from, because he's not collecting your money, first of all, but saying, I'm going to buy congressional browsing information and make it public. He may be thinking, I could go, if I can get an ISP to do this, I could go to them and say, I would like to target ads to people who are members of Congress. Mm-hmm. Can I buy that? Can I buy that browsing data?
So, again, I just want to repeat this because it's been driving me up the wall. The idea that you can just find that your senator has bought something illicit and now shame them publicly is not something that right now, and to be fair, Max Temkin in a Reddit post made clear what he didn't say it outright, but I will speculate, seemed to be a bit of a spur of the moment tweet, which has, kind of snowballed into something completely different. He warned against some of the GoFundMes, which he said they're probably promising something that they cannot deliver. And number two, the idea that they could try to get a large amount of data, cross-reference that with, ISPs that are known to be with, federally owned buildings, and then try to cross-reference it with other data to find stuff. But this is not something that you can that now everybody would be able to find out what you or I are doing exactly every second of the day.
Right. At
via
least
our ISPs. That is not what this is right now.
Right. Telecoms, again, rules haven't changed. And the rules up till now have said telecoms can't sell individual information, individually identifiable customer information. That's in the law. They do have the authority to sell aggregated information with a caveat, though. Under the part of the 2010 Open Internet rules. And this gets confusing because we think of the Open Internet rules as being the 2015 ones, the ones that classified telecoms as a common carrier. But under earlier rules from 2010, I think it was the Janikowski administration at that point, they put in transparency requirements. Now, the courts said that the net neutrality parts of the 2010 rules weren't okay, but they said the transparency rules were. So those transparency rules from 2010 are still in effect. They require ISPs to disclose how they manage your information. So if they are selling your aggregated browsing information, they have to disclose that and how they collect it. Verizon got dinged with this in last year because they were doing that super secret persistent cookie thing and not disclosing it. And so the FCC fined them for that.
So what do you think is the most persistent misunderstood idea about this, beyond just the fact that that all of a sudden individually I can find out exactly where Tom Merritt went and I can pay for that. I can pay $25 to find out exactly where you went.
Yes. The biggest misunderstandings are, one, that there's a change in the rule. There hasn't been. Two, that suddenly now everybody's browsing information is just up on a site for sale. It is, but not from ISPs. It's from hackers on the dark net. That is not what, that's not what we're talking about here. ISPs are not making this available. Really nothing has changed. Honestly, the only thing that's changed is AT&T had a promotion where they would sell you internet access at a lower rate if you agreed to let them scan your browsing history. They were getting your permission in that case. A lot of people were saying, oh, hold on, under these new rules, that might not be okay, even though you're getting permission because it's a payment difference. There may be a power difference there. Yeah. So AT&T backed off of that in advance of these new rules. AT&T might be able to change back to doing that and saying, if you let us target you with some ads and scan your browser history, then we'll give you a cheaper price. And really, that's the room we're talking about. There's a lot of public pressure on ISPs, even lacking competition, not to violate people's privacy. There's a lot of sunshine on this. There's a rule, as we just mentioned, that they have to be transparent about what they do. So they're still, even without the rules in place, very careful about how they use your personal information. What has changed is they now have the freedom to do so and only public opinion to fight, not an actual law or rule or regulatory rule in this case. And that's an easier fight. It's not a no-brainer fight, but that's an easier fight. So they're going to push the boundaries more. They have more latitude to push that. And it's possible that the new FCC might change the transparency rules. That could be coming down the road as well.
And I think that is what we need to focus on. And so I think if we could speak editorially here, the point is not to say, go back to bed, everything's fine.
Right.
The point is rather to say, let's understand exactly what we're looking at here, because if then in concert with this, FCC rules are relaxed and start to say things that are different than what they say now, then yes, a lot of what we are fearing in this a post-apocalyptic hellscape where everybody can understand where everybody is for a bargain basement price, then we worry about that. But right now, we are just at a waypoint between stations, and possibly we never get there.
Let me put it to you this way. A lot of people don't search for things on Google because they don't want Google to use that. It's not that they're worried about a guy or a woman at Google knowing that they were searched for, cure this rash. It's that they know that's going to affect the Google Now cards they get, the ads they see, and it's a chilling effect, right? I'm not going to search for this on Google. I'm going to open an incognito window for that because I don't want that to be in my browsing history. Under the current system, the ISPs can look at everything you browse and sell on that in a way you can't escape. There's no provision for opt-out. They aren't doing that yet, so don't freak out yet, but they could. And they have to tell you
they would
least
have
at
to
this
let
point
you know.
if they
would
do.
Have to let
but
you
they
know.
could. And suddenly, for the people who are like, well, why do I even care about this? Suddenly, every website you go to has that same someone looking over your shoulder feeling to it. And you stop going to certain websites because you don't want it to be in that ISP's browsing history and serve you ads and show up on lists and get emails, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, the interesting element of this is what happens now. This has been thrust into the public square. And if we are in a situation where either by technology or by government, we mentioned last week, the one dig thing, there is more competition where, if let's say all of a sudden Google has gotten out of the fiber business, but now they're in the over-the-air transmitted business, right? And they want to offer a service.
But they're slowing down on fiber. Yeah.
Let's okay, just hypothetical. Walk down this gilded path.
Sure.
Now, all of a sudden, there is an option where they say, hey, guess what? Although Google would probably not do this because this is literally how they make money.
Right.
But let's imagine that Google said when it came to internet, like, hey, we're not going to search your stuff, and we're going to offer you better privacy at a better price. Or as a way to differentiate themselves, one of the bigger players, or let's say third place players, like either AT&T or Verizon, whoever has the lower market size, they say, okay, we're going to differentiate ourselves as an option that maybe you'll get slower speeds or maybe you'll pay more, but we won't offer, we will not track everything that you do. If it becomes a public football, then now all of a sudden it is something that the market would dictate. It would value privacy, which for right now, considering how little I think we know about this, and this whole conversation has kind of laid that bare, greatly prefer that we valued privacy more in the public marketplace. Because right now, considering how much we just turn a blind eye to the Googles and Facebooks of the world and how much they know of us, I think it would be a good thing.
And that's the other thing here is the only argument for blocking these rules was that somehow it would reduce the ISP's ability to market themselves and innovate and make money because they would be a disadvantage to the Googles and Facebooks of the world who are governed by the FTC rules. However, now, because ISPs are a common carrier, they are not subject to FTC rules. In fact, they can't be subject to FTC rules. They are only subject to FCC rules, which there aren't any now. So they are only subject to the Telecommunications Act and its rules, which there are some, as we've mentioned. But we've kind of left them off the hook without any guidelines. They're not subject to the FTC rules at all. So on the one hand, they have a freer hand. On the other hand, this has put a huge spotlight on them. And I think they are less likely to do anything with this kind of history at the moment for fear of the backlash. They're going to wait till it dies down.
Wait for the trial balloons,
yeah.
Right? This is always what happens. It's going to be some major city where they're going to start doing it, and they're going to see exactly how it plays.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. But there you go. I hope we've given you a fairly good idea of what you should be concerned with if you want to be concerned. And if you want a breakdown of all of this, I actually posted this on our Patreon as my weekly column, the DTNS Weekly Tech Update at patreon.com/DTNS. And this week, instead, usually that only goes to the backers at $5 a month, but this week it's available free for everyone. So if you want to read that, we'll have a link to it in the show notes, or go to patreon.com/DTNS. Thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit, too. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. A couple messages of the day. First, Sunil, welcome to the show, Sunil, writes, coming to the show at number 2996, around the 26-minute mark, you mentioned the Steve Jobs analogy of how a tool helps us enhance our physical and mental powers. Yeah, Patrick was mentioning that. I've seen this interview a few years back and wondered, why would a man who believed that humans needed tools to amplify their nature be bothered on using a stylus to interact with devices? If I remember correctly, 2006 to 2007 was the time the stylus was trying to disrupt the market, and I'd like to know if I'm missing a backstory here.
I think that in Steve Jobs' mind, number one, the stylus kind of became a little bit of an unfair whipping boy as a way to differentiate and highlight the then revolutionary multi-touch and gestures interface for the iPhone. But it just was, the easiest way that you could say, look how far our technology is compared to the technology that is being offered by our competitors.
I certainly won't pretend to be able to speak for what Steve Jobs would say, but from what I know, he was arguing that your fingers are better than the stylus because you can't lose them. And so I would imagine he would argue that a touch screen is a more direct connection than a stylus, in that using your computer like a bicycle for the mind.
Meanwhile, Lee writes, I know that you mentioned on the show that people get scared of AI taking our gerbs, but I think the people who believe this is going to happen are completely correct. However, it should be kept in mind that this process may take hundreds or thousands of years. Between now and then, we will continue to invent new human jobs based on new technologies until we get to the point where AI is so advanced that it literally takes care of our every need, while in parallel, we've cyborged ourselves to a whole new species. He speculates Homo Deus, or Deus rather. Homo Deus.
Yeah, probably Deus.
Yeah, probably Deus. Watch a little bit of Black Mirror and consider things such as mind upload computers, see the episode San Junipero, and eventually physical humans themselves may just become extinct and replaced with digital versions. I highly recommend the book Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari. It's an enlightening and well thought out thesis on where humans and technology are going.
I love this because he's saying, yeah, you're right. There's a certain point where the computers just take over all our responsibilities, and what would jobs mean then? But that's a long way off, and we're going to keep going through this cycle for a long time. So I appreciate the email, Lee. That was good. And I will check out Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari as well. Thank you, Justin Robert Young, for joining us as always. Of course, as you mentioned, you're off to see the wrestling in Florida. I assume we'll be getting an episode of your wrestling show on that.
Oh, you're going to be getting a couple of them. Both my co-host, Willie Dills Gregory, and I will be going to several of the independent shows throughout the weekend. You can expect a couple bonus episodes of our podcast, 1-900 Wrestling, to go up in the feed as we do that. We're going to do it audio documentary style, which is something that we did during Royal Rumble in San Antonio. That was super fun, and we'll do that again this time. But I will just leave everybody with a fond, happy WrestleMania weekend.
Fantastic. Real quickly, just a note, if you haven't heard me mention it elsewhere, I have a novel out called Pilot X. It's a science fiction novel about a time traveler who just wants to fly his time ship and gets caught up into universal events and has to make a horrible decision between saving his own people or the rest of the universe. You can pick that up wherever books are sold, and I just wanted to thank everybody who's been leaving Amazon reviews, who has picked it up and read it. That is one of the most important ways an author can get discovered, and apparently 100 is kind of the magic threshold, and we're getting close to 100 reviews on that. So if you have picked it up and you haven't reviewed it yet, beautifully helpful if you go to Amazon and leave a review. Thank you very much. Pilot X is the name of the book. Also, thanks to everybody who gives a little value back to this show for the value they get from the show, including Mike Bloom, Dave Beisinger, Richard Baldwin, and many, many more. Thanks to all of you for supporting us at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Chris Ashley from the SMR podcast and, of course, Len Peralta illustrating. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Boom. Good show. What should we call it?
Hold on, wait a minute. Let me get my phone plugged in because.
Uh-oh. You're going to lose your internet. We lost Roger, too.
Can you hear me?
There he is. Okay, he's back.
All right.
Yes.
More ways to gain weight.
More ways to gain weight.
More ways, W-A-Z-E, like mapping ways to gain weight.
More ways? I don't... What? That's from yesterday's show, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Showbot was late.
Yeah, maybe Showbot didn't get cleared.
I got W. Scottus one just sent me, or BioCow sent me a link, and I just looked at it because W. Scott. All right. There are no votes in the regular sense, so I'll just go through the titles real quick.
Okay.
ISP Ortal, IS Portal, so ISP and then Ortal to hell.
Got it. Okay.
Go Facebook Me, Fun Book, The Wheels on the Lift Go Round and Round. Where in the world is a story written? The best edition Microsoft can buy, and Microsoft is spelled M with the $sign. Microsoft explores the enterprise with Galaxy. What you gonna do when Satya comes for you? Selling private data is transparent. Internet history hysteria. ISPs can sell our private parts. Can you buy my personal data? Someone in the sea of personal data has a rash. Let's sell them our cream.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I wish that there was some title that kind of gave like one of those screaming contrarian, like, stop freaking out about the ISP thing or something like that. Like,
I would say, like, you're worrying about the wrong thing.
Oh yeah, there's something there. You're worried about the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Why you're worrying about the wrong ISP privacy issue is really long and probably should be used.
What's a snappier way of saying that?
Yeah.
This is not the ISP privacy fight fight you're looking for or something. This is not,
But we can't do your amazing hand wave along with it, unfortunately.
Isn't there an emoji that covers that?
But parenthetical Roger's hand wave.
Yeah.
This isn't the ISP privacy fight you're looking for.
Well, I'll tell you what. These are always the episodes that I love the most because, like, man, stuff can get echo chambery really, really quick.
It does. I also sent you the link in Slack just if you want to look at the titles yourself. It's a Google spreadsheet.
Gotcha. Thanks for doing that, by the way. I'm sorry Showbot's down, but very cool that you guys put it all together anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
BioCow did it. Did the work. Did it. He didn't break it. Yep.
Did it.
Did it.
Yeah, I'm busy editing right at the moment, but I'll take a look at it.
There are bigger ISP privacy fights to fry. ISP privacy, internet privacy.
Internet history hysteria.
That's pretty good.
I would say
that.
internet privacy hysteria.
Loses the alliteration, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. How about internet privacy history hysteria?
I was gonna say internet privacy panic.
Oh, perfect. Try that.
You down with IPP?
IPP. It's
Or-
a few letters down from ICP.
I was gonna say, can we do internet surveillance panic and be ISP? Internet.
I kind of like that because I like panic. Panic to me is that's the appropriate, because we're not saying this isn't a problem. We're saying don't panic.
Like just slow your roll. Think about what you really need to be worried about and focus on that, because my feeling, and this is a common feeling in many arenas these days, is people get outraged about the wrong things and spend all their energy on them and then don't have the energy to change the thing that should have been changed.
Well, I know
I
should
got
be
a
changed.
buddy, brilliant friend of mine from Syracuse, who has done a bunch of really, really cool stuff. Is an entrepreneur and is launching a new mailing list. And his idea is basically that this is like, yes, it is a mailing list summarizing the news, but really this is a mental health challenge that you should give yourself to out your your consumption of social media, or even websites, reputable websites that are designed, and he has clout in this because he's worked with the redesigns on major websites before, that are just keep you there, to keep you clicking, because like that's
so real quick. Internet surveillance panic or internet privacy panic?
I would say internet survey. Get ISP, because ISP is the nomenclature.
Right. Carry on. You were saying.
So it's like, we are now, and I mean now as in like this week or this month, right? I think I have noticed it in this like moment where we're kind of waking up from this hangover of like the greatest social media binge of all time. And of course that's tied to the election.
Yeah.
Right. And that, I think his argument, and he's got research to back it up, I do not, I'm just repeating something that he told me, is like that you are making worse decisions and you are robbing yourself of health, wealth, and happiness by staying so plugged in that you are getting yourself outraged. You're focusing on the wrong things. You're losing focus on the larger things that matter. And you owe it to yourself to be disciplined with how much time you spend in that echo chamber. And I think that part, like this kind of stuff, man, it has all the hallmarks of it, because it's a lot of people who don't know what this bill is, who are bringing, loaded political arguments into this, that are making this about, Trump wants to sell your things, which, draw whatever lines you need to, but that kind of takes away from the central idea. And then are even going so far as to say, well, okay, well, if you're going to do this, then here are the punitive measures I'm going to take against you, which also belays a fundamental misunderstanding of what's happening, that we are now so far into the weeds. And it is because of this sort of like echo chambery, bingy element to it.
Yeah.
Which I don't know exactly how much I agree with, but I think it's a very interesting idea.
It's an interesting idea because I see the Max Temkin reaction being the considered reaction, which is like, we should figure out how to do this. I know you can't really just go buy one person's thing, but maybe there's something we can do, right? Like that fine. If that's what you think, then that's the way to go about it. These like, give me $100,000 and I'll do it. That's just going off half-cocked.
Well, sure. Although I think, Max Temkin and I I want to be very careful about what I say because I don't want to come off as critical of him because, I also make a card game, right? And to be fair, he almost single-handedly created a market for which adult card games can thrive, for which I have taken, a financial cut. Although if you've read the Medium articles about how well the Contender did or how not well the Contender did, you can understand it wasn't exactly a bounteous financial cut, but a financial cut nonetheless.
Sure.
But he's a political activist. And I think that at times when your focus is specifically on political activism and not, let's say, privacy activism, then there's just a different. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's different. Because for him, if he could cross-reference well-known ISPs that are on federal property and find that somebody in the office of Mitch McConnell bought a sex toy, then that's going to be a headline. Right.
And he's showing how the system works. He's showing like, look, this is what these folks can do.
But at the same time, you are, revealing that some staffer possibly, or Mitch McConnell himself bought a sex toy, right? And
no, that's a fair point.
He specifically called out like, wait till we publish what your children bought.
Yeah, that's not cool. Definitely not cool.
And it's like, but at the same time, that's a political argument. You're politically saying that we're going to target these people and we are going to show them that they cannot hide.
But that's where it starts to get crazy of like, yes, but that's not what ISPs are going to do. So showing like, hey, I can find this out about you, and any advertiser can too, is one thing. Saying I'm going to publicly embarrass people and their families, that's not what advertisers do. But it does. It's an extreme way of making the point of, but they could, I guess, and not get in legal trouble for it.
I really wish
it's kind of like someone needs to have the ethics of security researchers in this, which is, you sanitize data, you verify data without having people reveal their passwords. There's lots of procedures for doing that sort of thing that respect people's rights and don't and don't make them.
Listen, I'm all for, like I said before, us pushing forward the idea that we need to think more about how things are collected and how cool we are with it.
Yeah. It's our data. That's the principle I start from, which is I own that data. And I can enter in an arrangement where I let you, Google or Verizon, have that data and do certain things in exchange for a service. But I need to know what I'm getting for that.
And also, I think, we've said very often on this show that if you're not, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. I think that there is an element with the ISP thing where I'm a little cheesed off that I have to pay for it and I'm the product.
Well, it's like ads on the paid version of Hulu, right?
Yeah. It's annoying.
Maybe it's okay, but it's certainly less obviously okay. Like, what am I getting for that?
Should be annoyed. Yes, absolutely. You're getting James Franco's Stephen King adaptation with commercials for Velveeta.
Yeah, am I getting fewer commercials than the free version? Am I getting and so for the ISP, am I getting a cheaper rate because of that? Am I getting better service because of that? Or as I suspect with ISPs, they feel that they have maximized their margin of profitability on existing lines and infrastructure is too expensive, so they're looking ways to increase that margin with other revenue opportunities.
Yeah.
That's something I'm interested in helping them with. And so I'll take my business across there's nothing across the street. Actually,
there's nothing here.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I'm publishing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colonel Panic. Now I got MC Frontalot stuck in my head.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to make my way into the wild blue yonder of professional wrestling tonight.
Have a good time, man.
Evolve 80. The headlining match is ACH versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the Evolve Championship. Tonight, Joey Janela's Spring Break, featuring Joey Janela versus former rocker Marty Jannetty. This is going to be a real fun time. If you are in Orlando or you are a wrestling fan, please go ahead and reply me. I'll be putting up all the events that I'm going to with Willie and by myself throughout the next 4 days. I would love to meet anybody who is listening to this that also happens to be taking in the greatest American art form, professional wrestling.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow.